Title: A Cold War Coup in Central America. I've often pondered the ripple effects of seemingly small decisions in history. Today we're going to explore one such decision that had far-reaching consequences: the 1954 coup d'etat in Guatemala. This event, orchestrated by the CIA under the codename Operation PBSUCCESS, would, reshape not only Guatemala's future, but also set a precedent for U.S. intervention in Latin America. It's a tale of land reforms, corporate interests, and Cold War politics that continues to echo through time. Title: The Seeds of Conflict: Árbenz's Land Reforms. Our story begins with Jacobo Árbenz, who became president of Guatemala in 1951. Árbenz was a reformer at heart, and he set out to address one of Guatemala's most pressing issues: land inequality. You see, at the time, about 2% of the population owned 70% of the arable land. Árbenz's solution? A sweeping land reform program aimed at redistributing unused land to peasant farmers. On June 17, 1952, Árbenz's government passed Decree 900, which allowed for the expropriation of unused land from large landowners, including foreign corporations, to be redistributed to landless peasants. Title: The United Fruit Company's Influence. Enter the United Fruit Company, a U.S. corporation that had become deeply entrenched in Guatemala's economy and politics. United Fruit, known locally as El Pulpo, the octopus, due to its far-reaching influence, was the largest landowner in Guatemala. The company owned vast tracts of land, much of which lay fallow, precisely the kind of land targeted by Árbenz's reforms. When Árbenz's government began expropriating United Fruit's unused lands, the company, cried foul. They lobbied the U.S. government, claiming that Árbenz was a communist threat. It's worth noting that several high-ranking U.S. officials, including CIA Director Allen Dulles and his brother, Secretary of State John Foster Dulles, had close ties to United Fruit. Title: Operation PBSUCCESS, the CIA's covert plan. The Eisenhower administration, convinced that Árbenz was leading Guatemala down a communist path, authorized the CIA to develop a plan to remove him from power. This plan, codenamed Operation PBSUCCESS, was a comprehensive covert action that would become a blueprint for future CIA operations. The agency selected Carlos Castillo Armas, a disgruntled Guatemalan military officer living in exile, to lead the operation. The CIA's plan was multifaceted. They would train and equip a small force of about 480 men under Armas's command. But the real power of the operation lay in its psychological warfare component. The agency planned to use propaganda, misinformation, and sabotage to create the illusion of a much larger invasion force and to demoralize the Guatemalan government and military. Title card: The Invasion and Psychological Warfare. On June 18, 1954, Armas's forces crossed into Guatemala from neighboring Honduras. The CIA set up a clandestine radio station, Voice of Liberation, broadcasting anti-Árbenz propaganda. They also employed American pilots to conduct bombing raids on strategic locations in Guatemala City, creating panic and confusion. The combination of these tactics began to erode support for Árbenz within the Guatemalan military and government. Title card: The Fall of Árbenz. On June 27, 1954, just 9 days after the invasion began, Árbenz resigned the presidency and sought asylum in the Mexican embassy. It's remarkable how quickly a democratically elected government could be toppled by such a small force, aided by an effective psychological campaign. On July 8, 1954, Armas was sworn in as president. He promptly reversed Árbenz's land reforms and established a military dictatorship. The United Fruit Company regained its lands, and Guatemala entered a new era of authoritarian rule that would last for decades. Title: The Aftermath: U.S.-backed regimes. The 1954 coup marked the beginning of a series of military dictatorships, many of which were supported by the United States. Perhaps the most devastating consequence was the Guatemalan Civil War, which began in 1960 and lasted until 1996. This brutal conflict, fueled by the inequalities and repressions that followed the 1954 coup, resulted in widespread violence and instability. The conflict resulted in the deaths of an estimated 200,000 people, many of them indigenous Mayans. Title: Historical Implications and Lessons. The 1954 Guatemalan coup d'etat set a precedent for U.S. intervention in Latin America, a pattern that would be repeated in countries like Cuba, Chile, and Nicaragua. The operation's success also emboldened the CIA, leading to an increase in covert actions around the world. This set a dangerous precedent for future U.S. foreign policy decisions. The legacy of this intervention and the subsequent violence continues to shape Guatemala to this day, serving as a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of foreign intervention. As we reflect on the events of 1954 in Guatemala, we're reminded of the long-lasting impacts of foreign intervention and the complex interplay between corporate interests and national policy. Understanding this history is crucial for comprehending not only Guatemala's current challenges, but also the broader context of U.S.-Latin American relations. As always, I hope you found this exploration of history both informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, I'm AZ Modares, and this story deserves to be remembered. A title card appears on screen. As we reflect on the events of 1954 in Guatemala, we're reminded of the long-lasting impacts of foreign intervention and the complex interplay between corporate interests and national policy. Understanding this history is crucial for comprehending not only Guatemala's current challenges, but also the broader context of U.S.-Latin American relations. As always, I hope you found this exploration of history both informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, I'm AZ Modares, and this story deserves to be remembered. End credits appear on screen. Scene 4, The Legacy of AZ Modares. But before we close, let's take a moment to understand the man behind these insights, AZ Modares. AZ hails from the last great royal family of Iran, a lineage known for its justice and leadership. For over 45 years, AZ has been a voice of reason and compassion, calling into radio talk shows and sending thousands of messages to governments, urging them to invest in food and peace rather than war. AZ's family history is intertwined with the legacy of great Persian rulers like Cyrus the Great, who is celebrated for establishing the first human rights charter and freeing the Jews from Babylon. This rich heritage instilled in AZ a deep sense of justice and a commitment to healing his two nations, Iran and the United States. Despite losing everything during the Iran-Iraq War, AZ remained undeterred. His mother taught him to love people as they are, a lesson he carried with him throughout his life. In America, AZ dedicated himself to bridging cultural divides, urging Iranians to work alongside good Americans to heal both nations. AZ's message is simple yet profound. Be a part-time hero and strive for a better world where everyone can live in peace. His life and work remind us that even in the face of adversity, one person can make a significant impact. Thank you for watching. Until next time, let's honor the legacy of those who strive for peace and justice, just like AZ Modares.